John?
Me?
You?
I thought it was Lee.
No.
Really?
Yeah.
Fine.
Is that all right?
Well, actually, that's not how it was in the program, but that's cool.
No. It's printed incorrectly. How are you?
I'm good. Happy to be here.
Thank you. John's just back from a ferocious trip to Africa. I don't know if he's going to talk about that, but anyways.
No, I'm actually just back from Brazil, the other Africa. I'm really just back from a ferocious trip to the United States. I am from the United States, and this is our new logo. I knew you'd laugh politely. We're not kidding. More polite laughter. We're really not kidding. And when I say we, I don't just mean George Bush and company. I'm talking about us. George Bush does not happen in a vacuum. I mean, it is, I grant you, it's an unusual situation where you have 7,000 nuclear weapons. I mean, you want to see a weapon of mass destruction, try a nuclear weapon. This is not like, rat poison. It's a weapon of mass destruction. We have 7,000 nuclear weapons in the hands of somebody who cannot pronounce the word nuclear. And we don't mind. The other day, we finally resolved an old issue that's been standing out between our two countries. At some point during the Afghani, do we call that a war? I don't know what we call that now. During our adventure in Afghanistan, we hopped up some people with F-16s on amphetamines. We actually do this routinely. And we gave them a lot of speed and gave them an F-16. And they did something that a lot of Americans kind of want to do but never really get around to, which is they attacked Canada. And they killed some of your people. Yesterday we decided that this was okay. And that we're not going to punish the people who did that. Because we love the world, the United States does. And love means never having to say you're sorry. And if you've got 7,000 nuclear warheads, you don't have to say you're sorry that often either. Now, this is not an extreme situation. This is really what's going on, and I'll tell you why it's going on, I think. It's not because Americans are bad people. I mean, we're a lot like you, and you're very good people. And if I had any doubts about that, 3 days of intense study of Canadian culture, which is what this has been about for me, has demonstrated it once again, that you are really swell and funny and decent-hearted. And we're a lot like you. But we have allowed the ecology of our thought to be polluted. And we don't know about what Teilhard de Chardin called the noosphere. We don't know about the psychosphere. Reverend Wade Davis this morning gave a wonderful sermon about the ethnosphere, which I'm a member of his religion, and I believe it. We actually have an ethnosphere in the United States. It's a generican ethnosphere. It's highly mediated by corporations, but it is a culture of sorts, and it bears the same relationship to the rainforests that Wade was talking about, the rainforests of culture and mind. It bears the same relationship to them that the corporations that are cutting down the rainforest bear to culture and mind. Same set of folks, actually, or non-folks, large institutions that are highly monopolistic and are organized around their own environmental needs. Large media enterprises that are often densely interrelated with other large institutions that appear to be human because they're made of humans, but they are not human. Any more than a coral reef is a coral polyp, or an ant colony is an ant. They are other creatures, and they are competing with humans for the resources of the world at the moment. In any event, they have seized the control over the ecosystem of thought in the United States to a large extent. We have allowed them to clear-cut the American mind with television. And this is not entirely true. There's actually a large chunk of people, of which I am one, who have a different notion of all these things. I mean, I'm about as American as it gets. I mean, without being a Native American, my family came over there in the 1600s on both sides. I'm really American. And I can't stand what's going on in the United States right now. But, you know, I am doing what a lot of Americans are doing, which is getting on the internet and railing about it. You know, there was a future that I hoped for, prayed for back in the late 80s, which was that the internet would be a place where anybody could say anything they wanted and nobody could stop them. This has come to pass. So now you have 50 million street corners with a prophet on each one of them declaiming to an audience of himself and 5 or 6 others. And meanwhile, the old one-to-many media that we thought the internet was going to destroy, and the political blocks of organized force have gone on getting stronger in spite of the fact that they represent less and less a part of the population demographically. In the last election, 29% of the American people who could vote voted. And that turns out to be a very odd subset of America. But it's a powerful subset because the politicians in the United States, you may think that democracy has failed in America. It has not failed. Democracy is working really well in the United States. Too well. The politicians in America do not do anything that market, which is the segment of the public that still votes, does not believe to be the right thing to do. They know everything that market is thinking all the time. If that market told them to go out and slay the firstborn, they would do it. I'm not kidding. And they have already turned the United States into a police state to a large extent because that market is scared shitless and wants that to happen. The people cry out for shorter chains and smaller cages, and they're getting them. So it's not just George Bush, it's us, or a segment of us that happens to be hallucinating because something terrible has happened to our psychic ecology as the result of media. And the proposed solution to that has not come forward. The internet has not had the kind of effect that I assumed that it would have. I mean, I assumed that the internet would be the ultimate rainforest of thought. And it may yet be. I noticed that, you know, of the merry pranksters here, we are all clinging to beliefs that we formed early, and we are still right, we believe. It's just taking longer to show that than we thought it would. And I think we are right. But the problem is that the internet is in this, it's a developing ecosystem that doesn't have a full capacity to sort information as a real ecosystem does after it's been around for a while. I mean, a rainforest is actually just an information sorting processor, very complex one, that takes photons and redistributes photons. It's all about photon transaction. Cyberspace is all about idea transaction, or expression transaction, or stimulus transaction, or just human interaction. But it's a very similar kind of economy. It's just that in a rainforest, you have a well-established sort for what happens to a photon when it hits the upper canopy. What happens after that for a long time. The sort that it's likely to go through is well established. We don't know the sort of truth in a completely free marketplace of ideas. And so what we have is a situation that is bound to produce what W.B. Yeats talked about when he wrote, "The best lose all conviction and the worst are filled with passionate intensity." That rough beast is really slouching toward Bethlehem to be born right now. And it's because we have not been mindful of the ecology of mind and how to shape media so that they shape us in a positive rather than negative direction. What we need to do, I think, and I'm just going to throw this out as a proposal. I don't know how to do this yet. I want to talk to Moses about this, actually. He and I disagree on many things. Like each other a lot, but we disagree a lot. The old problem, the problem that I think caused most of the horrors of the 20th century, was one-to-many media. I mean, every single despot of the 20th century narrowed it down to one broadcast media in terms of what people could get as their reality, and created a dense reality distortion field that he himself was caught up in, just as George Bush is. One-to-many media, I think, are very dangerous, especially when you have one-to-many media that live organically on selling what will draw a response in the limbic system. I mean, what one-to-many media do in the United States is to sell the attention of the audience to the advertisers. And as a consequence, they have a really strong incentive to elevate human attention. Well, human attention is, I mean, they want to grab you as you're scanning through 57 channels. They want to grab you and make you stay there in time for the advertisement. How do you do that? Well, it's really simple. Fear, sexuality, and violence. That's the language of the limbic system, and hunger. And they know how to attack that and create a world, the apparent qualities of which are much more violent, sexually charged, and dangerous than the world that we experientially inhabit. So how do we remap the world so that the ecosystem of our understanding has gone away from being a business, which is where we're headed at the moment, and back toward a natural state? I think that the answer is to deal with human attention in a different way. There are too many voices on the internet that don't come into one cohesive voice. Mine is one of them. What we need now to develop is not one-to-many media, but many-to-one media. Ways of channeling all of the collective human experiences into something that is sufficiently coherent to grab a lot of human attention, and do so not on the basis of its ability to attack the limbic system, but because it's something that we all feel on another limbic layer, a survival interest in learning. Now, whether we'll be able to do that in time, I think is an open question. But in the meantime, I am so grateful to you here in Canada. You will rise above your own Puritan leanings and do as you did the other day, which is legalize gay marriage. Legalize what people do with their minds, which is really their own damn business as long as they're not hurting somebody, in my view. And generally come out on the right side of what is a cultural war between the forces of monotheism in their waning days and the forces of pantheism that are trying to be born, and between the forces of corporate exploitation of human thought and a desire to own all of human mind and to turn everything that human beings do with their minds into a product that has an economic value and no other. Turn your back on those things. Grow your own culture. Wait for us to come around. Be cautious about us, but don't become afraid of us. And don't become afraid of anything. Thank you.